So speaking of college, there is an excellent professor, a law professor at Faulkner University named Adam McLeod, who insists that any student who uses the phrase "I feel" instead of "I think" must cluck like a chicken. And if they use isms, all of those this ism and that ism, or if they use vague, trendy words like fair, diversity, etc., they must immediately stop and explain what they think. I noticed this in college, too. For comment, we turn to every millennial.
Okay, like right now, for example, the Haitians need to come to America. But some people are all, what about the strain on our resources? But it's like, when I had this garden party for my father's birthday, right?
That is so profound. That really changed the way I think about things, Like, Alicia.
Yes.
You might have noticed this, too. The language has changed now. People don't say "I think" or "I believe."
It's all
They say,
about
"I
feelings
feel."
all the time.
It's all about, but they'll, I feel like it would be better if we do this. I feel like this was kind of interesting. Why the change? Why do millennials only use the phrase "I feel"?
I blame the public education system. I also think that clucking like a chicken is not punishment enough, because let's be honest, drunk people do the chicken dance at weddings all across America.
Get your cameras out of my apartment.
Oh, you just do them in your apartment. Wow, are you like prepping a dance for your wedding?
Telling tales out of school here.
But I think that it is definitely something to do with what we see on TV, what our generation has read in media, what we, romantic comedies even, that like women are raised seeing from the 80s and beyond. Not that romantic comedies aren't amazing, but it does kind of teach this or reinforce this belief that everything is about feeling versus facts, like our buddy Ben says.
Yeah, I've heard that somewhere. Who says that?
Just somewhere. I think it might be a pinned tweet somewhere. And I think that is really continued over, and it's something that you see continually in the education system. I mean, I'm looking at schools right now for my 4-year-old, and every single tour, the two questions that are given the most time is the diversity question and what about the feelings of the students? And I'm like, no, not what about the feelings of the students? What are you going to do to get my kid into Harvard?
A professor of mine in college had a theory on all of this. This guy, Charles Hill, he's a lifelong diplomat, ambassador, and his idea was that over time, students have become much more afraid to make any statements of fact. They're too afraid because they think that the facts can be offensive. So you used to say the sky is blue, and then you could say, well, I think the sky is blue, that's just my opinion. And moves to I believe the sky is blue, because belief is a little more wish-washy. And then ultimately you get, I feel like the sky's blue. Even the word like, which we make fun of the Valley Girl, well, isn't it like this and that? Even that word like is distancing yourself. It's a simile. You're not saying the thing is what it is. You're saying it's like something else. And that gives you a lot of wiggle room. Now, Allie, you are a conservative millennial, I've read somewhere. Is it that millennials are afraid of making statements of fact? They seem hysterical in many ways. What is going on here with the relationship of millennials to objective truth?
I do think it's what you and Alicia both noted, this kind of popularization of subjectivity and kind of shame about being objective. And it's not just objectivity, but we're so afraid of being judgmental. The worst thing you can be after being a racist and a bigoted, a homophobe, is being judgmental. So if you say that anything is right or wrong, especially if you're on the right, then you're not only a bigot, but you are, you're morally wrong. And so I think in an effort to avoid being judgmental or being called a bigot or what have you, people start with I feel like or I think. It's also something that you learn in like conflict resolution, or if you go to like premarital counseling, they always tell you to start with I feel, because it takes the responsibility off of the person that you're talking to. It's like, I feel like you're being really rude. I mean, that's just my feeling, but I feel like it. So I think that's kind of what we're going for. We're so afraid of conflict. We're so afraid of objectivity. We're so afraid of being called a bigot or judgmental, that if we're just starting with our own feelings, you can't get mad at me for that. It's kind of like saying no offense when you're actually being really rude.
People only say that when they're being extremely offensive, You say, well, no offense, don't, whatever you're going to say, don't say it.
Can we get back to bless your heart, though?
Like
Yeah, bless your heart.
I think it's also because people don't understand what an opinion is anymore. No, we learn this incorrectly in schools. That people think that an opinion is a preference. So they think, you know, if I can say the sky is blue, that's a fact. I can say I think the sky is blue, that's an opinion, but it's a true opinion. Now, if I say I like the blue sky or the blue sky pleases me, I guess that's a preference. I prefer cheese sandwiches to ham sandwiches, that's a preference. But to say I think and then a statement of fact, that's an opinion, but an opinion states fact. Now, Jacob, this is a very frustrating issue when you talk to millennials about this. They want conflict resolution, just as Ali has said. But sometimes you need to push you need to push arguments to their extreme to actually get to an answer, to actually see the world clearly. What is to blame for this? Why are millennials so afraid of conflict? Is it the helicopter parenting? Is it the anti-bullying campaigns? Why are we so afraid of getting nitty and gritty in arguments with people?
I think it has to do with pop culture, honestly. I mean, even if you grew up in the 90s like I did and you had the greatest version of the Disney Channel original series, every problem is solved in 20 minutes or less, right? And so whenever a problem goes beyond that 20-minute mark, you're like, I need a commercial break right now. So I think that it has to do with, I just want to resolve this quickly, or it gets uncomfortable. And also has something to do with what Ali said, being judgmental. We don't want to come off as judgmental even if we know we're right. So when we say, oh, abortion is murder, and then a leftist says, well, that's judgmental, you're judging someone. You're like, well, I'm judging whether the fact that this person has a life or not, and if that life has intrinsic value. And I think my judgment is correct. And we just millennials need to not be afraid, especially conservative millennials need to not be afraid to stand up and say, look, this might not be solved in 20 minutes or less. We're just going to have to work it out and get all the facts.
It is totally an example of politics following culture, of the culture being so insidious in ways we can't recognize. I hadn't even considered that. And on the judginess, the don't be judgy, don't be judgmental, you hear this phrase sometimes now, which is don't yuck my yum. Don't say that the thing I like is disgusting or something. And the logical conclusion of this is what happened in the 20th century. There's a major movement among leftist intellectuals to normalize pedophilia. And now, obviously, this is in the air with, they say that Roy Moore, I guess that wasn't pedophilia, that was probably close to pedophilia. You know, it's a phebophilia, it's postpubescent girls, but nevertheless, girls who are too young to be having sex with and you're picking them up. There was this movement to normalize all of that. And we should yuck that yum. If somebody finds that yummy, let's yuck it, man. We can't have too much of that.